On the phone with me right now, one of the premier historians involving Abraham Lincoln. It's Thomas DiLorenzo, author of the book The Real Lincoln, Lincoln Unmasked, and several other books. Hey, Thomas.
Hello there, Rocky. How are you today?
Yeah, there's a book out called Forced into Glory that came out by Lerone Bennett, and he really rakes on Lincoln, and he used to be the editor of Ebony Magazine, didn't he?
Yes, right. He was the executive editor of Ebony Magazine for decades, beginning in 1958, and he wrote this book, Forced into Glory, which is even more critical of Lincoln than my books are.
Yeah.
And on the issue of this movie, he says it straight. He puts it straight that it's really is based on a fiction, that Lincoln did not do all these things that he's portrayed as doing in the movie to help get the 13th Amendment passed. In fact, I have an article coming out on LouRockwell.com tomorrow that documents all of that, and by quoting the preeminent Lincoln authority of the United States, David Donald of Harvard University. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning biographer. In his book, Lincoln, he points out I'll give you the page number of page 544, that it cannot be documented that even a single vote was ever changed on the amendment because of anything Lincoln ever said or did. In fact, he even documents that some genuine abolitionists, and Lincoln was not one, in the Congress, went to Lincoln and said, if you could probably get some Democrats in New Jersey to vote for the 13th Amendment, if only you can get Senator Charles Sumner to drop a bill that he has proposed to regulate railroads in New Jersey. And Lincoln's response was, sorry, can't do it. And so he did. So even when he was asked by the real abolitionists to support the 13th Amendment in that way, he declined. He didn't do it. And so David Donald, who is really the preeminent Lincoln authority of our generation, says that it cannot be proven that he had any influence whatsoever on even a single vote on the 13th Amendment. And so the whole movie really is based on a fiction.
Yeah, well, they start out on a wrong premise. If they would have just told it like it is, I think it would have been still a good movie. I'm going to go see it. Did you see the movie?
Yeah, I did. Daniel Day-Lewis is just a fabulous actor, so anything he is in is going to be good. It's going to be a good movie.
Yeah.
And Spielberg is, he's made a lot of great movies too, but it's based on a fiction, and not only that, the really thing that really sticks in my craw, so to speak, is that Lincoln really did support another 13th Amendment in 1861. This movie is about 1865, but there was another amendment proposed. It was called the Corwin Amendment, and it would have been the 13th Amendment, and it would have prohibited the federal government from ever interfering in Southern slavery. And Abe Lincoln supported it in his first inaugural address. He said, I have no objection to making slavery express and irrevocable, those are his exact words, by supporting this amendment to the Constitution. And it was Lincoln who got that amendment that did pass the House and the Senate, and he sent it out to the states with a personal letter, making note of the fact that his predecessor, James Buchanan, was also for it. And so, that's the story of Lincoln and the 13th Amendment. That's where he really used his political muscle to try to get that one passed that would have prohibited the government from ever interfering in slavery, but he did next to nothing in the actual 13th Amendment.
I'm surprised that that's what the movie's about. I thought it was going to be about, like, war and Eddie won, and that, maybe he had problems or something, because we know he was sickly, that kind of thing. And what happened afterwards, and him getting, I didn't know the movie was about him pushing the 13th Amendment, because everything I've read says he never did.
Well, the theme of the movie is what a slick political conniver he was. And it's kind of funny when I wrote The Real Lincoln, and I portrayed Abe Lincoln as just another real life flesh and blood politician who was motivated by money and power like all the rest of them. I was pilloried and trashed universally for suggesting that he was not a god. But now that's all changed. Now they're praising him. They're saying, yeah, he was a sleazy politician, and they're saying, thank God for that, because the ends justify the means. He got the 13th Amendment passed, which he didn't. It's a fiction, and you don't have to quote me. You can quote Harvard University professor David Donald, who's been writing award-winning books on this subject since the early 1960s. So it's really is kind of a farce. That's the theme of the movie.
Well, in the collected works of Abraham Lincoln, you can even get quotes out of there that are kind of stunning that you never hear in the mainstream pop culture media, like here's a quote. What I would desire most would be the separation of the white and black races. That's what Lincoln said. And none of this stuff is going to make the movie. So let me ask you a question. This lady wrote this huge book, and they based the movie on that, I guess. And why would she go through all that effort to do this? What do you think? I mean, why did they do this?
You're referring to as Team of Rivals by Doris Kearns Goodwin.
Yeah.
Well, I think the book is an act of penance on her part, because she was forced to confess to plagiarism several years before she wrote this book.
Oh.
And she confessed to making a six-figure settlement to a woman named Lynn McTaggart, who also wrote a book on the Kennedys, like Doris Kearns Goodwin did, and who she plagiarized. And so after she did that, she was kicked off the Pulitzer Prize Committee. She was kicked off PBS. Doris Kearns Goodwin was. And then she writes this big book on Lincoln. And I guess that's supposed to be her resurrection of her career, to write a book on Lincoln, which nobody is supposed to be able to criticize. But in my article that comes out tomorrow on LouRockwell.com, I quote her at the top of the page as saying, armies of researchers have combed through everything Lincoln has ever said or did and have never found a single instance of bigotry, racial bigotry.
Oh, my, you got to be kidding me. I got it right in front of me.
Right next to that, I put a Lincoln quote that includes what you just read over the air. Lincoln made many white supremacist statements. In the first Lincoln-Douglas debate, he said, I, as much as any man, want the superior position to belong to the white race.
Yeah.
So right there, Doris Kearns Goodwin's credibility is dubious, to say the least.
Well, I don't know why she did. Can you hold on for one more segment, or you got to go? Because I know you're a professor. But
sure, I can.
Okay, because we won't be long. Hang on.